Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'Hashem Yahushai, Ba'Hashem Rucha Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is GMS Biblical History Chronicles, the Exodus. And pretty much this is a series that I had going on this channel a while ago, where I would go through different, things in history, biblical history, and then, just go into some precepts and maybe some information and, make lessons out of it, just to, give the sense of what the scriptures are saying and kind of give an idea of the places, people, things, situations where Jake might have been at, or something that was going on in biblical history. And I decided to go over. I've been kind of messing around with this the last couple of days with the Exodus, because a couple of brothers, I believe, had said, the crossing of the Israelites was in the Gulf of Aqaba, which, when you look down here on the actual map, this right here is the top. These are the tops of the Red Sea. These are known as gulfs. This is the Gulf of Suez, and this is the Gulf of Aqaba. They crossed here in the Gulf of Suez, not the Gulf of Aqaba. And you have a lot of contradicting information out there when you go and you do the research. Some people say they crossed the Gulf of Suez. Some people say they crossed, the Gulf of Aqaba. Some people say that they crossed some lakes. There's a whole lot of confusion going on. So the Spirit jumped on me to, go into this. We've covered this before, but we really, I don't remember any lessons going in, into it. Just kind of just mentioning it, in talk, or maybe, while we were doing the Passover service, may have mentioned it, or may have quizzed brothers, on where the Israelites actually, crossed, when it speaks about the Red Sea. Now, when you go into the Hebrew, the Red Sea is not really Red Sea, it's the Reed Sea, because of the reeds. That's something, you can look up on your own. But the Israelites crossed here in the Gulf of Suez, and makes more sense because if they lived here in somewhere in this area, we'll go into the map, Goshen, it would make sense for them to cross here, because what are they trying to do? They're trying to get away from the Egyptian army. So it would make more sense for them to cross here than to have to, all them people, it was 600,000 warriors, on foot, men on foot. Then you had children and you had women. Then you had the mixed multitude. So some number it like in the 2.5 million, people, so on and so forth. There's no way to really calculate exactly how many people left, the land of Egypt. But we know that 600,000 men definitely, and children left, and they had their women, and then you also had the mixed multitude. So in order to cross from Goshen to here, that would be anywhere from around 230 to probably 300 miles. Now, I calculated on Google how long would it take to go from Cairo, Egypt, to the matter of fact, no, I'm sorry. I asked how long would it take to walk 300 miles, and it said 100 hours. So 100 hours would be a little more than 4 days. All right. So going from here across here, that would be a whole lot of time to, travel with that much people, and the Egyptian army. So it would make sense that they would cross here, and the Lord would drown them here to get them off off Israel's ass, so to speak. All right. So we're gonna just get into it. Like I said, this is just a map that I found. That I like to use like little illustrations at the beginning of the lesson, if possible. But I typed in, the date of the Exodus. It says if 1446 BC be accepted as the approximate date of the Exodus, then the entry of the Israelites into Egypt must have taken place about 1876 BC, and 430 years being the length of the sojourn in Egypt. Exodus chapter 12, 40 and 41, and Galatians 3 and 17. So that's exactly how long they were in there. They were in captivity for 400 years, as the Lord showed the vision to Abraham. I don't give a damn what any other Israelites out there say, that we weren't in the land of Egypt for 400 years. The scriptures say different, but they're going to make up their own narrative. When we go to the book of Exodus, the 12th chapter, and the 40th verse, I believe it is. It says, now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was what? 430 years. So how is somebody going to fix their mouth? An Israelite, somebody that goes back to One West, and say that the children of Israel were only like 200 and some odd years in the land of Israel, when the scriptures say different. The Lord told Abraham, when you go back to Genesis 15, that they would be in the land as captives for 400 years. And then you had Joseph that went in prior to the Israelites coming in there, which he was in prison, but he wasn't in captivity like the children of Israel were coming to captivity, because he was the forerunner, so to speak, that was going to set everything up. The Lord was going to use him to set everything up, to make that transition from the land of Canaan into Egypt, so that the Lord can bring about the 400-year captivity period. All right. So now that that's out the way, and these are just approximate dates. When you look at these maps are things that are drawn, by different people. These are illustrations of the ancient world, and the names, the biblical names, and approximate places where these different nations and peoples lived. So nothing is concrete, as far as being able to pinpoint exactly here, unless they found some ruins or whatever the case may be. But even in that, so everything that we do is pretty much based off of faith, So when we go into Exodus, the 13th chapter, this is the Most High leading the Israelites out of the land of Egypt. All right. About the 10 plagues. You know how Moses came to Pharaoh, and he told him, let my people go. I believe he said it eight different times. He also went to Pharaoh and said, let the people go to that they may sacrifice to the Lord 3 days journey. And he said that 3 times. Lest the Lord break out upon them, or something along those lines, because Israel will be, and when I say Israel, I'm talking about the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians, and the Israelites around the world where they be, meaning coming out of these people, are going to be joined to the Lord. That's why he said that if Elijah wouldn't come to set the hearts of the children to the fathers and vice versa, that he will come and smite the earth with a curse. Because these are the people, we are the people of the Lord. And the Lord has his word to keep. So it says the Most High leads the people. It says Exodus 13:17, and it came to pass when Pharaoh had let the people go, that the Most High led them not through the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near. For the Most High said, lest peradventure the people repent when they see war, and they return to Egypt. It says, but the Most High led the people about through the way of the wilderness of the Red Sea. And the children of Israel went up harnessed out of the land of Egypt. And they said harness was, when they were in groups of like 5, I didn't really look deep into it. I just read the precept, on the margin of the red Bible. I would have to do a little more research on that to find out exactly. So they went out pretty much, in groups. So it says that Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had straitly sworn the children of Israel, saying, the Most High will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones away hence with you. Now this is way before, this is way later to show you that, Joseph was a prophet. It says, and they took their journey from Succoth and encamped in Etham in the edge of the wilderness. All right. Because remember back then, it's, you had a lot of treacherous, places that were not inhabited. It was just wilderness. It was just forest, wilderness, wild beasts. There were no McDonald's. You didn't have, hotels where you could stay at. You didn't have, rest stops where you can gas up at. None of that. So let's go to this map that I got here. I'm not sure how good you're going to be able to see this. And, it's not really that big. But you have here Egypt and you have Goshen right here. I don't know if you can see that. That's Goshen right there. All right. So the Lord told Moses, and they took their journey from Succoth because I believe they were up here in Ramses, and they went to Succoth. What you see Succoth here next to Goshen. And then it says, I'm sorry, wrong way. It says, and they took their journey from Succoth and encamped in Etham at the edge of the wilderness. And here is Etham at the edge of the wilderness, because this is the wilderness here. So from Ramesses to Succoth to Etham. All right. And this is where they had sojourned, because they were moving. They sojourned. Remember, the Lord allowed Moses and the Israelites to leave for 3 days. All right. This was, the period of sacrifice that Moses had told this guy, Pharaoh. It says, and the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of a cloud to lead them the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, to go by day and night. He took not away the pillar of the cloud by day, nor the pillar of fire by night from before the people. Now, Exodus 14:1, and the Lord spake unto Pharaoh, saying, speak unto the children of Israel that they turn and encamp before Pi-hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea, over against Baal-zephon, before it shall ye encamp by the sea. So they were by the sea, by the Red Sea. All right. Now this map doesn't have the those locations. This map does, but this map has, it does give it has question marks on some of them, because like I said, this is, approximations. So you have Ramesses, Succoth, Etham, by the sea, by the, wilderness, at the edge of the wilderness. Then you have here Migdal, Pi-hahiroth, or however you say that. And then, they have on the other side of the Gulf of Aqaba, Baal-zephon. And then they have a red line here showing the travels of the Israelites. Because you have some individuals that say that they crossed over here somewhere. And then they put these three cities here down here somewhere. So there's a lot of confusion when it comes. These are so-called scholars and individuals that go into biblical history. They're not all in tune with each other. Everybody got their own opinion, their own, it's a whole bunch of mumble jumble. All right. So these are the three: Migdal, Pi-hahiroth, and Baal-zephon. And that's where they went. Speak unto the children of Israel and that they turn and encamp before Hiroth, between Migdol and the sea, over against Baal-zephon. Before it shall you encamp by the sea. For Pharaoh will say of the children of Israel, they are entangled in the land, the wilderness has shut them in. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, that he shall follow after them, and I will be honored upon Pharaoh and upon all his hosts. And that's another thing. Pharaoh and the whole host of the Egyptians, their chariots, the whole Egyptian army, including Pharaoh, died in this thing, because you have this bullshit that Pharaoh escaped, you know. Oh no, Pharaoh didn't get caught up in that. You know, that's what these so-called scholars say, or certain individuals that claim to have studied the Bible. They say that Pharaoh was the only one that escaped of that whole army. Psalms 106 and 11. And the waters covered their enemies, therefore was not one of them left. This was dealing with the crossing of the Red Sea, as you see here. Not one of them was left. Now let's go real quick to Psalms 136 as a side note. And we're going to start at verse... start at 13. I start at 12. I'm sorry, 11. And brought out Israel from among them, dealing to him. Let's start at 10. To him that smote Egypt in their firstborn, for his mercy endureth forever. And brought out Israel from among them, for his mercy endureth forever. With a strong hand and with a stretched out arm, for his mercy endureth forever. To him which divided the Red Sea into parts, for his mercy endureth forever. And made Israel to pass through in the midst of it, for his mercy endureth forever. But overthrew Pharaoh and his host in the Red Sea, for his mercy endureth forever. So I don't know, maybe they missed that. Maybe them individuals that study the Bible, they say, well, you know, everybody, the whole Egyptian army got taken except for Pharaoh. But I guess they missed this precept here, you know. And that, like I said, that was just a side note. So it says, back in Exodus 14 and 4, Pharaoh and all his host, that the Egyptians may know that I am the Lord, and they did so. And it was told the king of Egypt that the people fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and his servants was turned against the people. And they said, why have we done this, that we have let Israel go from serving us? And he made ready his chariot and took his people with him. And he took 600 chosen chariots and all the chariots of Egypt, and captains over every one of them. I'm just trying to get to the main points. All right, verse 10. And when Pharaoh drew nigh, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them, and they were sore afraid. And the children of Israel cried out unto the Lord. And they said unto Moses, because there were no graves in Egypt, hast thou taken us away to die in the wilderness? Wherefore hast thou dealt thus with us, to carry us forth out of Egypt? Is not this the word that we did tell thee in Egypt, saying, let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it had been better for us to serve the Egyptians than that we should die in the wilderness. Right here, this is the point. And Moses said unto the people, fear ye not, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Watch the Most High work, which he will show to you today. For the Egyptians whom ye have seen today, you shall see them again no more forever. The Lord shall fight for you, and you shall hold your peace. And the Lord said unto Moses, wherefore criest thou unto me? Speak unto the children of Israel that they go forward. But lift thou up thy rod, and stretch out thine hand over the sea, and divide it, and the children of Israel shall go on dry ground through the midst of the sea. Dig it? And behold, I have hardened the hearts of the Egyptians, and they shall follow them, and I will get me honor upon the Pharaoh. Why? Because he's going to wear the Pharaoh and the Egyptian army on his shield, so to speak. Like when a warrior goes to war and he kills like a top dude or top warrior or somebody that a lot of people feared, and he actually beat him and killed him. He wore that warrior on his shield, so he was honored upon him. It says, and upon his host, upon his chariots, and upon his horsemen, and the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I have gotten me honor upon Pharaoh, upon his chariots, and upon his horsemen. And the Lord is going to do a similar thing today. You know, the scriptures say that the Lord is going to smite Egypt again with plagues as before. So before this whole shithole goes down, they're gonna know who the power of the heaven is. They're gonna know, and they're gonna bow to the Most High, even though the scriptures say that they're not gonna repent after the destruction, but they're gonna know. They're going to know before this whole shithole goes down. And the angel of the Most High, which went before the camp of Israel, removed and went behind them. And the pillar of the cloud went from before their face and stood behind them. And it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel. And there was a cloud and darkness to them, but it gave light by night to these, so that the one came not near the other all the night. And Moses stretched out, because you got to remember, you got at least 1 million or more people, 1 million, 2 million, however many people it was. And it takes time. You have men, you have women, you have children, some were probably, some were older. So you can't move as fast as you can if you're just moving with with just a handful of warriors. So it takes time to move all of those people. It says, and Moses stretched out his hand. So it makes sense that the crossing would be here. In the Gulf of the Gulf of Suez, Salakia, not the Gulf of Aqaba. To get away from, kill them damn Egyptians, the Pharaoh and the Egyptians, and to be able to keep moving. Because they had a 40-year mission. And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And Elder Ayathun, I believe he did a lesson on it, if I'm not mistaken, to where the Lord pretty much congealed the waters, on both sides, and dried everything up. It could have been a laser. Well, it said the wind came, but it could have been a laser that dried it up. We don't know exactly how it happened, but we know it happened. And that wasn't the first time something like that happened. That was the first time, but there were other times that something like that happened, where the Lord divided bodies of water. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon the dry ground, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left. And the Egyptians pursued and went in after them to the midst of the sea, even all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots and his horsemen. And he went in there also. We just read that he got taken out. It says, and it came to pass that in the morning watch, the Lord looked unto the host of the Egyptians through the pillar of the fire of the cloud, and troubled the host of the Egyptians. The Most High, gave them a little whammy. It said, and took off their chariot wheels. He made the wheels come off the chariots. So the horses was catching hell trying to pull them chariots. Said, so that the Egyptians said, let us flee from the face of Israel, for the Lord fighteth for them against the Egyptians. So the Most High was doing his thing. And they realized that, and then what did they do? They was trying to get away, but they didn't get far, because the man with the tow truck repossessed their car. Inside joke. It says, and the Lord said unto Moses, stretch out thine hand over the sea, that the waters may come again upon the Egyptians, upon the chariots, upon the horsemen. And Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its strength. It says, when the morning appeared, and the Egyptians fled against it, and the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. And the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen and all the hosts of Pharaoh himself that came into the sea after them. There remained not so much as one of them. I don't know what these people are reading. It says, but the children of Israel walked upon dry land in the midst of the sea, and the waters were a wall unto them on the right hand and on their left. Because like when the waves come up and they wash up on the beach, and the water hits the beach and goes back out, you see that there's parts of the sand that are wet. Well, when the Lord dried that up, the children of Israel went on dry ground. It wasn't wet. It wasn't, murky or not murky. It wasn't miry. It wasn't muddy. It was dry. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day out of the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead upon the seashore. And Israel saw that great work which the Lord did upon the Egyptians, and the people feared the Lord and believed the Lord and his servant Moses. right? And that's why when we read the 15th chapter, from the first verse down, it speaks about the songs that Moses and Israel was singing, the songs of Miriam. And then when we get here to the word, to the 22nd verse, the Lord provides water. So this is after the crossing of the Red Sea, right? Remember, we were, let's see if we could, wish I had a bigger map, man. Well, I'll use this one. They were, let's say this is Goshen. You had Ramesses, you had Succoth, you had Etham, then you had Pi-hahiroth, and then you had Baal's, I forget the other something, Z something. You had Migdal, and then the crossing of the Red Sea. So now they're on this side. The Egyptians are dead, and they're continuing on their quest from here. All right. So Moses brought Israel from the Red Sea, and they went into the wilderness of Shur. And they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. Now, there is, let me see. They're saying that this is the wilderness of Shur. All right. So they were in this area. So it says, and when they came, matter of fact, let me see what it says for Shur real quick, like. Wilderness of Shur. Shawar. A place southwest of Palestine on the eastern border or within the border of Egypt. The Israelites passed through the wilderness of Shur after crossing the Red Sea. Also wilderness of Etham. All right, so let's go back. Close this up. And they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. And they came, when they came to Marah, they could not drink of the water of Marah, for they were bitter. Therefore, the name of it was called Marah. Now that right there, Marah, you can see right here, that's Marah. And keep in mind, these are estimations. Marah was around this area. They went on a journey from there, and then they came across something called Marah, a place called Marah, because the waters there were bitter. As you can see here, you might see a little better here. All right. So it goes on to say, and the people murmured against Moses, saying, what shall we drink? And he cried unto the Lord, and the Lord showed him a tree, which when he had cast into the waters were made sweet. There he made for them a statute and an ordinance, and there he proved them, and said, if thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy power, and will do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandment, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. That's right, because the ultimate healer is what? Who? Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. And then it says what? And they came to who? To Elim, where were 12 wells of water, and 70 palm trees, and they encamped there by the waters. So when we go to the map, we could see here that you have Marah, and then when they came where? To Elim. That's Elim right there. All right? And this is between the Suez, the Gulf of Suez, which would be now on their west, and the Gulf of Aqaba, which would be on their east. All right. So now let's go to the 16th chapter. In the first verse, the Lord provides manna. And they took their journey from Elim, right? We just saw where Elim is. Elim is right here. Now listen good. And they took their journey from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came unto the wilderness of what? Of Sin, which the wilderness of Sin is right here. Sometimes it's spelled with a Z, sometimes it's spelled with an S. All right. It says, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after their departing out of the land of Egypt. So between Elim and Sinai. So we have Elim here, and then Mount Sinai is right here. So this is Sinai in this area. Somewhere around in here, in this area right here, this is all Sinai. These are just the mountains in Sinai. And there was a range of mountains, and they went to one particular one to receive the 10 commandments. But now let's look up this word Sinai, right? We look up the word Sinai, and I hate to disappoint you, you scoffers. I know this is a boring lesson, so y'all ain't gonna be able to scoff unless you just say some stupid shit. So you can move along. Those of you that like to be entertained, this is not an entertainment lesson. It's not a controversial lesson. It's not, something that you're going to hear, brothers getting on the woman or Esau or other camps, so you can move along. Hate to disappoint you guys, bro. All right, so this is Sayunya, which is Sinai. Sayunya, Sinai, thorny. The mountain where Moses received the law from Yahweh, that says Jehovah there, located at the southern end of the Sinai Peninsula. What is a peninsula? A peninsula is a body of land covered by 3 parts water. You have the peninsula here. Peninsula is not over here. It's impossible. How can this be a peninsula over here? You have 1, 2, and at the bottom of that 3 sides of covered with water. That's the Sinai Peninsula, right? Between the horns of the Red Sea. Exact site is unknown. They don't know exactly where it is, but they know that it's in this area, in the Sinai Peninsula. And it says what? Between the horns of the Red Sea. What does it mean between the horns of the Red Sea? Between the 2 gulfs. That's one horn and that's another horn. So if that land is between these 2 bodies of water, how in the hell could they have crossed the Gulf of Aqaba? They would have been over here in Arabia. Which some of this is part of Arabia, but they would have been over in this side, on the east side of Arabia. How in the hell could they be over here? You see? So they crossed here, approximately here somewhere. And this is why the scriptures say we prophesy in part, for we know in part, because this is what we know. We don't know every little detail, but every little detail is not necessary, because if we got every little detail, then that means that we wouldn't be walking by faith. I'm not sure if that's St. John, the 20th chapter or the 21st chapter. Let's see. Yep, 20th chapter. And this is when Yahushua appeared, and then Thomas said he wouldn't believe unless he put his finger in the Lord's prints and his hand in his side. And Thomas answered and said unto him, my Lord and my power. Because why? Because he actually put his finger in Yahushua's wound. Right? It says, Yahushua said unto him, Thomas, because thou hast seen me, thou hast believed. Blessed are they that have not seen and yet believe. Because why? Because we would be prophesying in part. Let's go to that. What is that? 1 Corinthians 13 and 9. For we know in part and we prophesy in part. Yeah, because we don't know every single detail. But what there is to know, we have the 100% truth of that. But the parts that are not revealed, we don't know. Like the 7 thunders, whatever they uttered. John was about to write it. The Apostle John was about to write it, and he didn't, because it wasn't meant for us to know that. But when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away. Verse 12. For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know even as I am known. That's right. Because when the Lord comes back, all of those different mysteries and little things that we don't know about, questions that we may have about certain particular things in the scriptures, we're going to know all of that. Because the Heavenly Father knows every little detail. He's not in the flesh, so he's not going to forget. When you're in the flesh, you forget things. That's the curse of this flesh. All right, so now let's go real quick to Hebrews chapter 11 and 1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. For by it the elders obtained a good report. Through faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of the Most High, And that's through what? Through faith. How can somebody go into the Bible and do a lesson, which they don't, these wacky tacky Christians don't know, but sometimes they may quote in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. How do you know that? Nobody was there. The earth wasn't created. Man wasn't on the earth looking up, watching the hands of the Most High working through Yahweh Shai and the angels. So how do we believe that? It's by faith. Whenever anyone quotes the scriptures, it's by faith. See, these devils are not, they're carnal men. That's why they go and excavate things. We don't need that. We don't need to go excavate nothing. Because the Lord gave us the gift, to believe it without actually seeing it. It says, so that the things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. That's right. Because it was invisible powers that did it. That you can't see, but unless you're in that dimension. What is that? It's either Romans 1 or Colossians 1. Right. So Romans 1 and 19. Because that which may be known of the Most High is manifest in them. For the Most High have showed it unto them. Meaning he showed these things unto us. And he showed the wickedness unto the wicked and righteousness unto the righteous. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made. So we understand these things because the Lord showed it to us. Put it into our spirit to be able to see it, even though none of us were physically on earth, because the earth did not exist. Man did not exist. Everything was in the spirit around. Everything was in its elemental stage. The only thing that existed was Yahweh Shai and the spirits that were created. Because the Most High created Yahweh Shai and he created everything else that we see through the guidance and the blueprint of the Most High. Even the eternal power and powerhead, so that they are without excuse. So that's pretty much the point. So why do we believe these things? It's by faith. So that's why I said these illustrations are illustrations that people drew based off of the shape of the geography of those different areas, and then based off of, the things that are written in the scriptures, they pretty much put different names on it based off of, they might have found some relics here in this particular place. It's this is where Goshen is or was. So based off of that, we know that so and so was over here and so and so was over here, and they may have found some relics in Ramesses and Succoth and Etham, so they knew these different places. You see, so that was the route that we took. We crossed the Gulf of Suez, not the Gulf of Aqaba. So any brothers that's teaching that, you have to change that. We crossed here, and you're gonna, if you do research on this, you're gonna find all different types of conflicts. But we just read in the scriptures where they crossed, because after they crossed, it said that what? Let's read this again. After the children of Israel crossed, it said, and they took their journey from Elim, because this is where they ended up after Marah, which was a bitter, the waters of bitterness. It says, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came unto the wilderness of Sin. And in other scriptures it says Zin, which is between Elim and Sinai. And then when we looked up the word Sinai, because when you look up the word Elim, it's not going to tell you anything more than a place where the Israelites rested. I believe it was a third, which is Ayalam, Palms, second encampment of the Israelites after the Exodus. That's all they're going to tell you. But when we look up the word Sinai, Sayanya, it says the mountain where Moses received the law from the Most High, located at the southern end of the Sinai Peninsula. And we saw what the Sinai Peninsula is. It's this peninsula here. And you can't really see. Oh, yeah, here. This is the peninsula right here. It's covered by 3 parts of water. All right. It says between the horns of the Red Sea. So if it's between the horns of the Red Sea, this is the Red Sea here. This is the Gulf of Aqaba. This is the Gulf of, this is the Gulf of Suez. This is the Gulf of Aqaba. The Red Sea is down here. These are the two horns of the Red Sea. So it's between here. And you see there's Sinai. So how in the hell could they have crossed the Gulf of Aqaba and be over here? That's not the Sinai Peninsula. You know? So the children of Israel crossed the Gulf of Suez, not the Gulf of Aqaba. So with that, I pray that you brothers and you few sisters have been edified. If the Spirit gives me another lesson to do, Lord's will, I'll do another lesson. And with that, I say shalom.